TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Rightly so. He was, in the early '80s, he was like the biggest territory in the country.
Right.
If not the world.
Any other standout moments from AWA that you want to talk about, or?
Curt Hennig was a big influence on me in those first few months that I was in the business, because I remember getting in a vehicle with him, and him he talking to me about psychology, talking to me about the business, talking to me about things. He said, "You won't understand it now, kid, but in a few years you'll go, that's what he meant." And that's basically how it happened. A couple of years later, you're going, the light bulb goes on, and there you are. So I mean, Curt was a super influence for me at that point.
Did you see any of his classic ribs from back in the day?
Oh God, I was probably the victim of a couple of them. You know what I mean? When being a greenhorn coming in to a territory, I'd get my bags padlocked to water pipes hanging in the dressing room. So I'd come back from a match or come back from watching a match, trying to learn, and there'd be my bag. I'd have to get some superintendent to come and with a bolt cutters and cut that stuff down. You know what I mean? So.
Right. After the AWA territory, what other territories did you work? I know you said Portland.
I went out to Pacific Northwest. Worked for Don Owens. That was really an enlightenment for me, because that was just great being out there. Don Owens is probably the reason why I'm still in the business today. And Lynn Denton, of course, the grappler, was a tremendous influence on me out there. Guys like Dave Sierra. I was out there with Matt Bourne, Colonel DeBeers. Buddy Rose was a tag team partner of mine. Worked with guys like Steve Dahl, Scott Peterson. We had basically, half the team was young, half the team was experienced, but they just was good ideas, and it was just good. We were out in the market. In that market, we were doing better ratings than New York Saturday Night Main Event at the time. They were doing that on NBC once a month. And in the market, we had better ratings on the Saturday night than New York did at that time.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so.
How was Don Owens as a promoter?
Like I said, he's the reason why I stayed in the business. He had he loved me for some reason. God knows why, but God bless him, and, God rest his soul. He was probably one of my favorite promoters ever to work for. Just Jesus Christ, I wish I could pay you more. Christ, Avalanche. I got a bag of beans. I got bread. I ain't got no butter. Boy should just get a bag of beans. He had a saying for everything. It's just, he was, and then he'd backhand you a wad of money, and you're like happy with what you were getting. I mean, I was, 19, 20 years old, and I was making pretty good money at the time.
Did any of the vets mentor you early on at all?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody I was around, like I said, Buddy was my tag team partner. Buddy was good for me. I was driving up and down the road, Heels and Babyfaces were riding in separate cars at the time. And I would ride up and down the road with Buddy Rose, Colonel DeBeers, and Lynn Denton and myself, and we'd drive there. And the knowledge that was in that car was just phenomenal. I mean, you can't, a greenhorn like myself at the time, I couldn't have asked for anybody better to be in the car with me. You know what I mean? It was just that knowledge, and just the different, because everybody's got a different psychology. Everybody thinks a little bit different. But, I mean, Ed Lasowski's nickname was Easy Ed. Buddy Rose was just a tremendous worker. At his size, one of the best bump takers of all time. Lynn Denton was a tremendous at psychology. So I had really just like a plethora of information that I could just dig from, and it helped create me and make me into what I am today, I guess.
Early on, did any of the vets test you out in the ring? Try to stretch you or anything?
It's hard to stretch a guy that's 400 pounds. But, I mean, I had guys, Matt Bourne, he tried to have a go a couple times, and one time he beat me, and, the next time I'd get lucky and I'm whizzing him over. You know what I mean? I don't come from a big amateur background. I did do some intramural college wrestling, and that was about the extent of it. So, I was mainly a football player. So.
What other companies did you get to work for before you went over to Europe?
Those were the two main companies. What happened is Fujinami came from New Japan, and he saw me out in Portland, and he watched me work, and he goes, "Oh, you next Bam Bam Bigelow, Japan," and I was like, wow, because Bam Bam was in New York, and there was no cross, working at that point. And so they'd already set up a date before he left Portland. I already knew I was going in February to Japan, and this was like, I'd say early November, late October that year. And then all of a sudden Fuji went from there, and he went over and did a championship over in Germany. And then and I had already met Otto Vonzz in the AWA, because when I got to the AWA, he was like the world champion there for Vern. And I remember getting a phone call from Otto Vonzz and asking me, hey, you know, would you like to come wrestling? Because Big Jim Harris had some issues and he had to fly back to the States. So he called me and said, I said, yeah, how long do I got? He says, 4 days. I didn't even have a passport.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.